Hey everyone, Graham here from the recordingrevolution.com. Today I want to show you how to set up a mixing console template in your DAW. This can apply to any piece of software. I'm in Pro Tools today because that's what I use, but the concept is really simple. You may have heard of templates. I've talked about templates before. They sound really boring, so don't tune out just yet. But I was redoing a mixing console template for my studio here recently, and it made me think about this might be a great opportunity to show you kind of what you can do. And what I like to think of with the template is treat my DAW, Pro Tools in this case, whatever software you're in, Cubase, Studio One, Logic, treat that like a console. Okay, we've talked about the mixing console mindset, but literally try to set up a saved project file, saved session file, saved template that is set up with tracks that are empty and ready to go with plugins, the exact ones you tend to use in a very practical sense. So here's a Pro Tools session that literally has no audio in it. Okay, it's just empty tracks. But what I've done is created tracks that I commonly use for mixing. So if people send me a track, they generally have most of these. It's not going to be perfect, but it's going to get me close. And so I've got drums here, and I've color-coded them already in a way that at least I can see them all. Drums in red, and I've got a drum bus and a parallel bus that I can use for parallel compression later, a bass guitar, a handful of guitar tracks and a guitar bus, maybe a stereo keyboard, some vocals, a Vox group. And this is a pretty small session, but these are the basic ones, all the way down to my mix bus. Okay, so I've created tracks, I color code them, I label them, but here's the kicker. I go ahead and get them set up as if it's an empty console ready to dump your multi-tracks through. So on every track, I've got a trim plugin. Okay, a couple weeks ago, I showed you how you can use trim plugins. So it's at the top of my console, already set across the board for a minus 10 dB cut in gain. So this would be a gain plugin or whatever. I've got these on every track, already turning the tracks down by 10 dB. Why? Well, because pretty much everything I get to mix is way too loud anyway. So at least it's a starting point. It'll have brought down the level by 10 dB. Of course, I'll need to adjust, but it get quieter for me. That's across the board. Right below that, I'm using the virtual console from Slate Digital. I mix through this all the time. It's part of my sound now. It's pretty subtle, but I have it set up with no drive, no nothing, just set on the SSL default setting. So it's in place. I don't have to go fishing for it. I literally treat it like the sound of my DAW, the sound of my console. Okay, so again, no settings. It's just audio would run through it. And that goes all the way across to the mix bus, which is the same version there. And even if you don't use this plugin, I'm just showing you if you have something like it, you can use it. But here's the big one is I use a channel strip plugin. Most of the time these days I'm mixing through the SSL. I'm just really familiar with it, and I really love the sound of it, and I work quickly with it. So 3 reasons it's great. This could be any channel strip plugin on a Pro Tools rig. This could be the Avid channel strip, which is great because it models the Euphonic System 5 console. This could be any channel strip that you own, or if you just have stock plugins, then what I would do is just grab your favorite EQ. I'd put a 7-band EQ perhaps, and then a compressor right after it. So you'd have 2 plugins instead of 1. And you want to set that up on every single track that you would mix. So in essence, when I dump my tracks in here, I've already got them going through trim plugin and EQ and compression. All I have to do is say, okay, kick drum. There's no settings here yet, but I can start dialing them in. Or not, I can leave it there, but it's already in place like it would be on a console. The same thing is true over here in the end on your master fader or mix bus. Again, that's part of the virtual console collection is the mix bus plugin. I like to mix through a compressor. So I have that already set up to the settings I like. So on the SSL G-Comp, I always have the slowest attack, auto release, 2-to-1 ratio, and then I've got no gain happening, and the threshold is super high. So in essence, by default, no compression will happen, but my settings are in place that all I have to do is dial down the threshold knob, and I can start to watch the gain reduction meter and kiss it the way I want to kiss it. So I've got that set up. I've got an EQ already in place with a little bit of a lift of a shelf and a little bit of a high-pass filter because I inevitably end up finding myself doing that. Maybe it's the way my room sounds. Maybe it's the way my ears are tuned. I always want to brighten it up a little bit with an EQ. So that's already in line, and I could bypass it if I don't want it yet, but it's there, just like you'd have on a console. And then if you're doing anything like tape saturation or something like that, I have that set up to the default settings that I like with no input, just set up on the virtual tape machines so that it emulates me tracking to tape or mixing down to half-inch tape. Now, do you need all these plugins? No, that's not what I'm showing you. I just want to show you kind of where I'm retweaking my mixing template right now. What you want to do is go ahead and create a project or session file like this with blank tracks, put in the plugins, and start labeling things, routing things. I've got everything routed the way I want. Guitars going to the guitar track, mix bus, everything dumping there, that going to my main outputs, whatever. And then you save this on your desktop, on your audio drive, wherever you can find it easily. And depending on how your DAW works, you have one of two options. You can either open this track and save a copy of it as the name of your mixing file, and then literally go find your audio and dump it into the session. If you have a kick drum track, bring it onto here, snare onto here, etc. And then the extra tracks are the ones that don't match up. You drag them to new tracks, and then you can simply copy the plugins over really quickly. So for most of your tracks, they'll line up. If you're always recording or mixing the same tracks in your own studio and your own music, this becomes really easy and pretty predictable. So you can do it that way. You can do that in Pro Tools also. Just export all your audio from the other session and dump it into here. Saves you some time. Or if you have something like in Pro Tools, you can do save session data or import session data. This is something that you would do on the other track. Let's say you've already recorded a session or someone sends you a session to mix. You'd open up that session, choose import session data, and then that allows you to go find your mixing template and pull in all these things. Can't actually do that because I'm already in that template. But you could then import all these empty tracks and their plugin settings and insert them on top of your existing tracks. Pro Tools can do that really easily, and I'm sure other DAWs can do it too. But even the crude way of literally just dragging your audio into this will save you time. It will treat your DAW like a console. So when you're ready to mix, you're not thinking about, okay, yeah, I need that same SSL or I need that same EQ, or what do I have on my mix bus? What was that nice setting I had on that mix bus compressor? Or if you already have delays and reverbs that you like to use, like you always have a great vocal delay that you tend to start with, go ahead and set that up. And then literally, you're just importing new audio into your console, which is the way people have worked for years. You pull up the DAT tapes or pull up the tape, the reel-to-reel, and you run the multi-tracks through the console. It already has all the EQ and stuff and all your outboard gear patched in. It makes mixing much faster and much more familiar because you're not reinventing the wheel every single time. And unfortunately, DAWs make you reinvent the wheel. So if you have something like this, go ahead and set up a mixing console template today. It'll be worth it, especially if you're about to mix an album or an EP. It will save you time, and you'll become really familiar, and you will work faster. So hopefully that gives you some ideas of things to work on. And again, speed up the workflow. Get back to making music and not instantiating plugins. That's what it's all about anyway. Hope that helps everyone. Graham here at therecordingrevolution.com. Make some great music. I'll see you soon.